Hi, welcome to the Influence Women podcast. I'm your host, Kathleen Cooke, and I'm excited today to be interviewing DeAnna Kane, the Hollywood chapter director for Influence Women. DeAnna is a great writer, producer, publicist, as well as a woman who knows the importance of connecting with women. Stay tuned for this great interview on why you need to be part of Influence Women. Now, like us, and also don't forget to hit the bell below so that you will be notified for all the upcoming Influence Women podcasts. Stay tuned now for DeAnna Kane in this great interview. Well, I am so excited to have you with us today, DeAnna. You are a special person to Influence Women, and as the new Hollywood chapter director for Influence Women, we're excited to have you. You've worked alongside me in various events and helping us for many years with Influence Women and the events there. And we just had a amazing event this past spring that you oversaw, and we launched you out there, and you just did a fabulous job. But tell
Thank
us a
you.
little bit about you. I know you are a writer. You
Mhm,
have your own publishing company, KC
mhm,
Media Publishing Company. You've written a book on with Leslie
mhm.
Galloway, one of our Influence Women advisory board members as well. And she's also worked alongside with you on Mona Me, which is another ministry you both work within and have. You've authored the book Basic Manners Made Easy, and
Mhm.
you radiate hospitality. You radiate the love of God because you know the importance of relationships. But tell us a little bit where you were raised and how your journey with God has been and your career.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me on. It's always an honor and a pleasure to talk to you, Kathleen. You and Phil are just two of my favorite people.
Aw.
Such an inspiration to women all over, which I know we're going to get into a little bit later. But for me, I grew up in the Chicago area, and I had a very normal upbringing, really great parents that raised me. I grew up in the church. I didn't have this um epiphany or this hectic moment that a lot of people get, that turning point where they have that come into Jesus moment. I really didn't have that. I've always grown up in the church. I've always loved the Lord. Every year I always went to a Christian camp that just inspired me and put me on fire every year for that whole season to delve into my relationship with God. I've never felt like I was alone or not with him. So I'm very fortunate in that. And even through the ups and the downs and the tumultuous things that have happened in life, I've always known that he's always been there with me. And so guiding my steps, maybe not always as much as I've sought out his guidance in that. So of course I've had my stumbles and my falls and my mishaps that we all go through. And as every
Yep, we're
loving
human.
parent, that's right. And as every loving parent, sometimes you got to let your child fall to learn those lessons. And some of them were harder than others. But I've been had a very blessed life growing up and very fortunate with a great family. And I'm very close with my siblings. And it's been it's I've really been blessed. I really can't look back and go, I have all these complaints about when I was growing up and all this hard time and strife and everything. That's not that there weren't hard times, there were, but I just knew that there was always God was always there seeing me through all of those tough times. And so he brought me to a lot of places. And I'm very, grateful for that through my university years, through my master's degree. I've lived in other countries and which were amazing experiences. When I went through to my master's degree is actually when I discovered that I was actually a fairly decent writer. So I didn't really realize that before. I went and got my undergraduate degree in communications with a emphasis on public relations. And when I went and did my master's degree is when my professors, there were two of them who both had the same last name, well, not same last name, but they began with a K, so we called them the Killer Ks. They were really tough professors, but they really encouraged me in my writing. And from there, I ended up um, kind of following that path of using writing as a basis for what I do in my career right now. As you know, thanks to you and Phil, actually, I ended up working with
Oh,
Museum of the Bible for a few years, which is one of the best jobs ever. It was a very blessed. I worked in the donor development department and did a lot of overseeing of their content. And then, as you know, as you said, I ended up working with my business partner, Leslie, and we opened up a publishing company and we create women's lifestyle magazines that are meant to encourage and lift up women during around every aspect of their life. And so I love what I do. I kind of feel like I'm cheating in life a little bit because I love it so much that I am, I'll be up until midnight working sometimes and I don't feel like I'm working. So I kind of feel like I'm cheating a little bit because I don't have that bump
mhm.
and grind of, oh, it's Monday, I got to get back to work. And it's like, oh, it's Monday, I get to still work.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we love what we do and we have a great time doing it.
Well, you're a mother of 4 children as well, so that is a little bit, of, just a little bit of a workload, I'm sure.
4 teenagers, by the way, and they all
4
still live at
teenagers.
home, so which is a
Yes.
challenge in itself, but they're great kids.
Right, and a couple dogs and cats and
Yes,
a garden that you take care of. You just
and
amaze me at all
horses.
the things that God has your hands in the soil, tilling
That's
around, so to
true.
speak,
That's true, and
in many
horses,
ways.
can't forget the horses,
No
we
pun
have those.
intended there.
Right. Exactly.
But, Deanna, your life to me has always been so joyous. And so you've always had this willing servant spirit about you.
Aw,
And
thank
I was delighted when God opened the doors for me to move to being the global director of Influence Women, as we've opened up so many chapter groups now around the United States. We'll open our 7th chapter group with Dallas
you.
this fall,
Yay.
and we're
Mhm.
excited about that. And
Yeah.
so, what propelled you to want to take on the Hollywood chapter? Because we've always called it the mothership here.
That's right,
Um,
that's well,
but it's very influential, of course, and requires quite a bit of know-how and stamina and a lot of
true,
servanthood. So, so
true.
why did God place that on your heart?
Yeah, that was an interesting conversation that I had with God a few times, actually. So when you first brought it up a couple of times, because I remember originally you were gonna move you into a national position, and then that didn't make sense because it was like, but eventually it's you're already global. So it took on a little bit of a bigger meaning
Mm,
when that shift happened. And so Sherry, I think her name is Sherry Hurst, Rabbi Sherry Hurst wrote a book called We Plan, God Laughs. And that's kind of become the motto of my life because I always think I have everything neatly planned out and God goes, yeah, no, that's not how it's going to work. So when the opportunity first arose and you were kind of putting feelers out there to see if somebody was going to take over this position, my first thought was, oh my gosh, I feel sorry for whoever is going to have to jump into that role because they've got some really big shoes to fill. And it's not going to be easy because you're so amazing and you just have
oh,
such a
well.
grasp and a vision of what you want for that. And I thought, oh my goodness, the next person that comes along, they better be amazing and dynamic. And I feel so sorry for that person. I'm going to pray for that person, right? And God said, well, since you're praying for that person, and I thought, "Oh, no." And I mean, you just kinda listed out a few of the things. I have so much on my plate, and I thought, "Lord, there is no way that I can take on one more thing. I just can't do it." And so the first time you mentioned it, I let it go. And then the second time you mentioned it to everybody, I let it go. And then the third time I remember when you mentioned it, again, we were at lunch one day after a board meeting, and the Lord just kept kind of nudging me. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just offer up and say I'll help in that role until we can find the permanent person, right? I thought I'll just help in that area. And I thought, Lord, I've got so much going on, and this is one of those but God moments, but for God. And He said, if I give it to you, you'll be able to do it.
Mm,
And that was when it kind of hit me and it struck me. And I really had to kind of weigh my options of, could I serve in this position in a way that would merit what needed to be done? And then I started thinking about what I already do. And, re- you know, regarding the fact that, I am in hospitality, I do focus on women's ministry. We create women's lifestyle magazines. Everything that we do revolves around women and the supporting and the encouragement of that entire group of people. And I felt like they complement each other so well. And that's why I loved Influence Women when you first started it. I remember just the small little gatherings that we had in your home. There would be just a handful of us, and then they started to grow and grow and grow and get bigger and bigger. And I just loved the camaraderie. I loved the fact that the flagship, or the mothership that we called it, whatever you want to call it, that, that was here in Hollywood, because we've seen, I remember the very first one that we spoke at, that Leslie and I spoke at, and we were telling about our magazine, and we were talking about One of Me. And after that meeting where we spoke, we had so many people come up to us after we had explained what our magazine was all about and what Mon Ami was about. And so many of the ladies came up to us who were all in the Hollywood industry. They were, actors, writers, producers, directors, you name it. And they said that they were so touched by what we said, because in Hollywood, we know it's a tough business. And when you are on the rise, everybody is right there lifting you up and supporting you, and they're your champions, and they want to see you succeed, and they're right there. But the minute you start that decline, all of a sudden, the phone calls dry up, the visits stop coming around, and you find that you're very lonely and isolated. And that was the story we got from so many people. And I remembered that when this opportunity passed by, when you were talking about it, and I thought, this is what this entire organization is about. It is about, and Leslie and I talk about this all the time. We talk about finding your tribe. And when you find your tribe, women itself, it doesn't matter if you are American, or, you're Hispanic, or you're Asian, or it doesn't matter. We are all part of the same group of women in general. And it shouldn't matter where you're from. And one of the things that I love about Influence Women is that we're trying to break those preconceived notions that women need to be in competition with each other in order to succeed, because that's just simply not true. But we've been, I don't want to say conditioned to believe that, but just lifestyles and the way things are, because I think women feel that there's not enough roles, there's not enough places for them to be, there's not enough jobs for them to get into, regardless of what field you're in. And that's just simply not true. What I find is that women, they don't lack skills, they don't lack ambition, they don't lack knowledge. What they lack is a guiding group or mentorship of people that are going to encourage them, that they trust, that will help them get to where it is that they want to go. And that's what I love about Influence Women, because it's exactly what we do with our publishing company, and the fact that we're not in competition. Now, I'm not talking about, okay, you have two ladies that are up for the same role in a movie. Yes, there's going to be some healthy competition, but if you don't get that role and you can't be happy for the woman that does, you're going to miss out on your blessings, and you're going to miss out on an opportunity to make a relationship and a connection with somebody who in the future could be there to support you and encourage you when you land the role that you want to do. And I love that about Influence Women so much. And stick with me, I'm going to go on a little bit of an analogy here. Bees. I know this is going to sound so crazy. I love bees, and I'll tell you why. I'm deathly allergic to them, first of all, but I'm fascinated by them, because the male bees, they're only there to create the queen bee. And once that's happened, they get kicked out of the hive. The women are the workers of those bees. There was a study done where this woman she had about 18 or 20 different hives on her property. And she saw a bee had gotten caught into a trap, a spider web trap. And so she removed that bee and brought it to a hive. And she said, most likely it was not part of that beehive, because the bees pollinate from other areas and they come back to their own hive. She placed the bee down on the ledge in front of the beehive. And she said immediately there were about 6 or 8 bees, female bees, that came over and started to pick away at that web to free that other female bee. She wasn't part of their tribe. She wasn't part of their hive. She had no connection with any of them, but yet they pulled together to free her from that, to lift her up and support her. And that's kind of what I feel about Influence Women, is that when we gather together and we lift up and we support and we encourage each other, it doesn't matter what we're doing, where we're going, and what we're talking about, but that that you have that trusted group of people that you can pour into, and that they can pour into you, and that together we can lift up and we create an amazing society, amazing workplace, amazing family lives that we have when you have that tribe. And wow, that was a really, really long explanation.
And I'm going to add, and we
Wonderful.
can create amazing projects and amazing productions, amazing writing,
Yeah.
amazing music when we collaborate. I've been talking
Yes.
more about how Influence Women is really about three things. We're about connecting with each other, the three C's, so
Hmm.
that we can collaborate with each other, so that we can create. And
Yes.
so, and not only do we create projects, but we create a lifestyle and a
Hmm.
community. We're
That's
creating
it.
a community of women together. And you're so right. I love what you're saying about support and
Hmm.
connecting and caring for each other. We're in a culture in our world today that's all about me and
Right.
not about the community of women and who we are together and how we can build together. And that's what God's kingdom is all about. It's about the body of Christ, right?
Right.
Not just the arm or the leg or the head or the heel. It's
Right.
about the body of Christ coming together. And so
Yes.
I just love your explanation. I love the B story. And I think, it's so, isn't it wonderful how God gives us nature to be able to teach us how he loves us and cares for
Mhm.
us and how we
Mhm.
can work together and
Right.
be a family and a community together.
Right.
And so I'm so excited that you are taking the helm. When you mentioned to me that you would be interested in taking over the chapter, my heart just leaped because I thought I would love to have asked you to do that, but I knew you had so much on your plate at the time. And I thought there's just no way she would take that on. And here, then you came to me, and it's just such a blessing. So I'm so excited for what God's going to do here in Hollywood in the future. I'm excited
Mhm.
for how Hollywood affects the rest of the world globally.
Agreed. Agreed.
Um,
Mhm.
we often talk about the Hollywood industry, but when we're talking about the Hollywood industry, we're talking about a global industry, really.
Mhm.
Women working globally all over the world in film, in music, in writing, in arts. Um, we are a global community. And through technology, which has allowed us now to connect through podcasts like this and through Zooms or through our events, we're able to grow that community and embolden each other and
Right.
empower each other. And
Right.
the other side's been doing that for a long time and pushing back. And I believe it's time for the Christian community to come together and embolden and empower each other through Christ and through His power in us. And so it's so needed. If
I
you could
agree.
tell women one or two things that they could do to overcome some of the challenges that they face in the industry. We all face rejection. We all face
Mhm.
financial strain. We all face competition. We often talk about the industry being a roller coaster industry, that one time you're going up and growing towards your career, and then another time you've hit the top, but then now you're going down again. And so what's one or two things that God's taught you about overcoming some of the challenges um, in that you would suggest to some of the women listening today?
Sure. Well, first, like I had mentioned earlier, I think it's really, really important that women find their tribe. You need to find that connection, even if it's just one or two people, somebody that you know that you can trust, that's going to have your back, but doing it in a way that that person is in your life because they love and they cherish you and they support you, not for what you can do for them. You give to somebody and you pour into them, not because you expect something in return, for that. So, and they're out there. There are women who are hungry for that. They're hungry for connection, and that's one of the things that we teach. And we do that through hospitality. Is when you create that connection and you show somebody else that they are important, that they are special, that they can be respected and encouraged and supported through what you can do. You're going to find that that is reciprocal. And I find a lot of times, with me, when I'm requesting loyalty from somebody, it's because you're getting it from me. And trust is a really hard thing with women, especially when you hear different stories of how they've been mistreated, or and we know about we know all about that stuff in Hollywood. We don't need to get into that area, but it's really hard for women to trust, especially in this area in general. So I would highly, highly, highly recommend, when you come to these meetings and you come to our gatherings, for the conferences that we do, and, we do them here in Hollywood. We do large ones at least twice a year, once in the spring, once in the fall. And then we do these little micro gatherings. We call them the Inspire gatherings, where they're smaller, they're 20 to 30 people. If you can't meet somebody at one of these gatherings, then I don't even know what to tell you, because everyone that I have met, and it does not matter that I am in a position of leadership now, because before I was in a position of leadership, I started off on, your board, a year ago, but nobody knew that. So it doesn't even matter if you're in a position of leadership. People are just attracted to other people who can tell that you are well-meaned with them, that that you just really care, that you want to listen and you want to understand who they are and how you can be, best supporting them. So I would highly encourage people to come to these events. And like you said, we're now opening up our seventh chapter, in the country. So they're all over the country, Dallas and Baton Rouge and Atlanta, Nashville, they're all over. And so there's a way for you to get connected, and I would highly recommend it. And it's just because we're in Hollywood doesn't mean that you have to be in the Hollywood industry in order to connect with women. We've got writers, we've got I'm a publisher. I'm not in the entertainment industry. So, I create women's lifestyle magazines. That's about as far from the camera as you can get. We're all, we're all
I
written
often
words.
say if you own a cell phone and have a social media account, you're in media.
You're in media. Exactly. There's so many different formats of media. You be a news anchor, you could be, a journalist, and, it doesn't matter. And like you said, social media, you could be an influencer or not, you're still in media and you still have an influence and you still have a purpose. So I'd highly recommend to get plugged into one of the events that we're going to, and just start meeting people. And I know this is hard for some people, especially people like me. I am really introverted. So I'm great when it comes to talking like one-on-one like this with people that I know, and I can get up in front of a whole crowd of 1,000 people, not bat an eye, and give a speech. But you put me at a table with 10 people that I don't know, and it's like, oh my goodness. And getting through that small talk, I get it. It's not always the easiest thing to do. I can do it. It's really hard on me, but I can do it. So you can do it too, so I would highly recommend getting involved in one of these groups and trying to put your tribe together and figuring out where those commonalities fall, because once you find that support and encouragement, you're going to find how much further you can go, because you've got somebody in your corner. And that isn't to say that it's only going to be that women. I mean, obviously, know that we have our Father in heaven who is always in our corner, but sometimes we need that tangible here as well, because we weren't created to be isolated. We're created to be walking through this life and this journey alone. And quite frankly, a lot of the people influence women are single, at least the ones that
Yes.
I've met, especially here in
Yes.
Hollywood. So it's really hard to find that tribe, especially as women, when you're trying to get through these notions that there's always a competition. And I don't think women really understand quite the power and authority that they really do have. And again, what I feel like they're missing is that guide to bring them to the next step and the next stages of where
Mm.
they're going to be. They're missing that guide, that support, and that encouragement from a trusted group of people. So get connected. I think that's the most important thing that they can do in this industry.
Right. And when they come to events, they get the opportunity to get a t-shirt, an
They
Influence
do.
Women t-shirt, and we have our Influence Women hats.
Which
So
I love, and I wear them all the way, and I don't know why I did not think of wearing mine today. The shirts are super soft, and I
yes,
wear the hat all the time. So, like, it's my
exactly.
go-to hat.
So
Oh my
we
gosh,
have so much fun at these events. I'm always
we do.
reminded that you get the women together and then I can't get them to leave. I'm
That's
trying
true,
to,
it's true.
sometimes
But
these
those are good
venues have
problems to have.
an out date or an out time
Yeah,
rather.
we
They're
do.
standing in the back going,
We do have
come
an
on,
out
got to get
time.
these women out the door. And I'm shoving them going, okay, take it outside now. So
It's
we
true.
have a lot of fun.
It's
We
true. Well,
have
that's what happened at the very first one that we spoke at. We were little people didn't want to go, and it was well past the time of leaving. So doors were closing. Everybody was gone from the parking lot, and we still had a group of women that were following us to the car to talk to us more about it. And those
yeah,
are good problems to have, because those
yeah.
are good encouragements
Mm.
and good reminders that there are people out there who are going to love on you and support you. They really do exist, and there is
Yeah.
doesn't have to be this barrier, that
Yeah.
you have to try and fight through, that there's competition. and there, because let's face it, women make up, and I don't know if you know this, I can find the stat for you because I have it written down in our media kit, but women make up over 70% of purchasing decisions, not purchasing power, but purchasing decisions. So things that are made that you would spend money on, women usually tip the scales on how that money is going to be spent in the family and the workplace, and the resources and stuff like that. So women don't understand what kind of value that they hold. And a lot of times, you're going to find that when you find the right people around you that are going to support you in your endeavors. So,
Right.
because I really feel that women support women create strong communities create strong economies, and strong economies make the world better. That's just the fact. We get stronger homes, we get stronger workplaces, we get, stronger relationships in our neighborhoods. They're safer, they're more effective, more efficient. Our kids grow up with, better balance, when women are doing well. So it's amazing to me how much women actually don't understand, you know, how important their role is. And I'm
Their
not saying men's
influence.
roles are not.
They
Yes,
are influencers. Yes, we
that's
are. We
exactly
are
it.
definitely influencers. So
That's
now
for
that we're
sure.
talking a little bit about the family, I know you have four
Yeah.
teenagers right now. And so talk for a little bit about with why influence women especially is important, because as we grow and collaborate together, we can create projects that can affect and change our culture. And
Mhm.
the culture right now and the way they are targeting our
Yep,
teenagers today,
right.
particularly young girls with gender dysphoria and
Right.
identity issues, even boys. Um,
Mhm.
talk to us as a mother why influence women is so important, so that we can actually create these communities that can create something that will turn the dial, that will influence our kids in the right way, because the other side's pushing back pretty hard right now.
That's right.
Um,
That's
talk
right.
to us a little bit from a mom's point of view on that.
Absolutely. I just, that's a really it's a touchy subject for a lot of people, and I might push a few buttons on here, but the fact of the matter is, if you're not pouring into your children, somebody else will.
Mhm.
So if you're not going to be that influence in your child's life, somebody else will. And it's so important right now for parents in general, men and moms and dads, to really pour into their kids to give them a good foundation and a structure. And I am super busy. I am on the go from morning until night until I drop dead or exhausted. I shouldn't say dead. That's bad. I'm not speaking that over myself.
Yes.
I drop exhausted into bed.
Yes, I
But
know.
there is not a day that goes by that I don't talk to every single one of my kids, that I don't sit down and have a conversation. There's not a time that goes by that one of my kids can't come in. My oldest, who's, going to be 18 next week, he will interrupt at every chance because he wants to just show me a silly video that he's seen on YouTube or, on TikTok. And I will take that time. It's 2 minutes, 1 minute to set aside whatever it is that I'm doing, to say, yeah, sure. I want to hear what you think is really funny, because not only is it I'm showing him the importance that whatever I'm doing is not as important as him, I'm also getting a really good insight onto what's influencing his life. So, with my kids, my personal stance on them is that you're living under my roof. So there is no privacy. There are still rules that you have to pay, that you have to abide by. And so I know every single one of my kids' passwords to their phones, to their iPads, to their computers. I know all the games that they're playing. I know all the movies and TV shows that they're watching. We only have one Netflix account, and I have the only password to it. So when they want to log into it, they have to come to me and I put the password in, so that way they can't go in and change the parental settings. So I will go in periodically and I will see what everybody's watching. And we all have our own accounts. So I know exactly who's watching what. So I monitor what they're doing. Does that mean they're still getting some negative influences in there? Absolutely. But I also am confident enough to know that I'm pouring into my kids enough to where when they come to a decision or a crossroads in their life and they're going to make a decision, they're going to at least go in with the knowledge to say, okay, I could take this in one of two directions. This is the direction that society tells me, this is the direction that my mom or my family is talking to me about, but they're the ones that love me. And this is the really important and the most salient fact in this is that my kids know that there's nothing more important than them. And that even though I'm working so much, they know that I'm doing it to provide for them. Same thing with their dad. He works really hard. He's in the entertainment industry and that he's a business manager. And so he manages a lot of very high profile people. And his job is crazy. He gets calls all night long trying to, work through problems, but there's nothing more important. And my kids always know that everything that we do is for them. So if you're not willing to pour into your kids, somebody else will.
Hmm.
And so you have to make sure that the important lessons that you're teaching your kids are the lessons that you want them to abide by. And you can't just think that this is going to happen through osmosis. Yes, you can still be an example and you have to show your life. Like I show my life that I live through Christ and that he lives through me and that everything I do is based on that foundation. But I also know that I still have to teach them that. They're not just going to get it through osmosis. So I do make sure that I pour into them. So if I'm on social media and I see, a really good message about something, I will copy that link and I will send it to all four of them. So they know that there's things that I'm thinking about that concern them and concern the lifestyles and the choices that they make, and that at the end of the day, no matter what, I'm always going to love them. So I think that's the most important thing as a parent. If you don't pour into your kids, somebody else will.
That's right. That's right. And that's why, again, for us, influence women is so important because so many people are pouring into our kids with
That's
some
right.
lies, with some
Mm,
teaching,
mhm,
doctrine, an agenda of where they want to go, and twisting
mhm.
our morals around and our values around. And so, we as Christians who work in the industry, it's our responsibility to come together so that we can
Mhm.
create and collaborate together and create something that will turn the dial in the opposite direction in a new way. So
Right.
important. Our kids are depending on it. And you are a responsible parent. There are a lot of them, parents out there that are not monitoring their kids' media intake, and
Mhm.
um, and that's scary out there. And we're
It
seeing
is.
in many ways the results of a culture that's turning into some pretty scary scenarios in what's happening with our kids and our youth and how they're thinking. So,
Yep.
so
Yeah, it's true.
so, so true. Statistics tell us that really kids should really only be on social media or on media an hour and a half above and past what they're required to do because of educational reasons, studying and that kind of thing. That we need to teach our kids how to put the cell phone down, how to put the media down, and have conversations with each other and relationships. And so
Right.
important today.
Well,
But
and we do. Yeah, I
yeah,
just jump on that for just a second because
yeah,
I know those reports, and this is always a conversation that I've had with my pediatrician about this because he's all like, they should only be on electronics about 30 minutes a day. And I understand the reasoning by that. And I think there's a good balance that needs to be had there. I'm not necessarily, and I know there's studies on that. I'm not necessarily sure I sway too much to the side that their electronics should be limited so severely. And I'll tell you why. Because my kids, at any given time, I have four of them, and they're teenagers, and they're all very stubborn and strong willed, which I am very happy about. But I know where they are every day, all day long. So for me personally, I don't really limit their electronics when we are not doing things as a family because they're not out drinking and smoking and doing drugs and joyriding and stealing and graffitiing the town. There's a lot of that that goes on around there, and kids get in trouble when they are not disciplined enough to be able to create their own activities. And as a
mm,
parent, if you don't have the time to create the activities or sculpt them in a way where they're going to be making those decisions responsibly, I'm not necessarily against the electronics because, again, I know exactly where my kids are. Now, there are times when they do have to put them down. We have family dinners together. And when we're sitting down to family dinner, we have conversation. There are no cell phones, there's no TV on, there's no radio, there's no talk, no music or anything like that. And we have lively conversations. And we've been doing this since my kids could sit at the table in high chairs. We have
mm,
always done that. So now, we would start off and I would, give a couple of prompt questions when they were younger. And I would say, okay, tell me one thing you learned in school today and one fun fact. And that's how it started. We'd all go around the table and everybody would talk. Well, now it's gotten to the point where those 15-minute dinners, end up being 45 minutes to an hour where we sit down and we actually talk to each other. So when you cultivate those times, the outside of those times and the in between times, for me, living in LA, it's a crazy city. I would
Mhm.
rather them be on their electronics at home and know where they are than be out. Now, if I'm structuring something else, that's different. I mean, obviously, we do a lot of trips. We go to Magic Mountain and we go to the beach, and and we're doing stuff like that when we're doing activities. Absolutely. My dad was a big proponent of that, where he didn't want us to be on TV all the time, so we all had to be in sports. Awesome. But if you're going to limit your kids' electronics, you have to make sure you have an alternative form of whether what you want, call it entertainment, learning, structure, sports, whatever it is. They're not old enough and don't have the comprehensive intellect at that young age to understand the choices and the consequences that come with those choices all the time. Kids are most likely going to learn by reason or by consequence. So you can teach them by reason and hopefully they won't learn by consequence. So I'm all about, curbing those electronics, but you do have to be able to be the parent and structure that downtime to letting them know what's appropriate and what's not appropriate so they don't end up making choices that they're going to have to learn by consequence.
Yes. Yeah. Well, so good parental teaching today on, on
Didn't
media.
mean to get off on
And,
that, but
but it's good. It's, it's good for our audiences to hear, and even those who are creating and collaborating, and creating that content for our teens and our young kids. Um,
Mhm.
and knowing how that they actually consume media is so important. So,
Right.
well, it's been great having you with us. I'm excited again to have you as our new Hollywood chapter director for Influence Women. And I know the community here is going to continue to grow and thrive under your leadership. I'm so excited to see what God's going to do. Thanks for
Thank you.
joining us today for that. And I know we have a fall event coming up
We
soon.
do.
So those of you who are not familiar with Influence Women, please join us at influencewomen.org. You can become a member, it's free. You then become a member of the Hollywood chapter or one of the other chapters. As DeAnna mentioned earlier, we have chapters now in Atlanta, Nashville, Baton Rouge, Houston, Orange County, California, and we will be launching Dallas here in fall 2024. So join one of the chapter groups, come be a part of it. And it allows you then to collaborate and connect with other women around the country and around the world. This
Right.
our website is a collaborative site. It's an interactive site. It's not just a landing page. So you can actually have conversations and create great conversations with women all over the world. Join us on our podcast each week, the Influence Women podcast. You can like us and hit that bell so that you're notified about our podcasts in the future. You get great t-shirts and fun things at all of our events, so watch for them. And our leaders, all of our chapter directors around the country, are really truly outstanding women, and they have created programs and events for you that you don't want to miss, and will challenge you and educate you on the industry. Our job is not only to create media, but to create effective media that will change the culture in our world today. We need that. So again, DeAnna, thanks so much for being with us today, and we look forward to your leadership here in Hollywood and what God's going to do. Well, thanks for joining us today for the Influence Women podcast with DeAnna Kane. She's had some great points on why you need to join Influence Women. I hope that you will consider it. Don't forget, you can go to influencewomen.org and sign up to be a member today. And it's free. And then be a part of all of our great events around the country. Join us for the next Influence Women podcast, and we'll see you next time.